good afternoon. Welcome to Breakroom Mom. I'm so excited that you're here and joining me today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
And Kathy, your background. So you are a licensed psychological associate, and you see and treat teens, adolescents, and we're talking like all the biggies: mental health, depression, anxiety, ADHD. And this is so critical for the folks who are listening to this because these are real topics that are coming up for parents.
That's correct. Yeah, I love what I do. I always tell people that in helping children, I feel like I get to teach them some coping strategies and things that I wish someone had taught me when I was their age, things that'll help them now, but also for the rest of their lives. So,
my friend, I have hard-hitting questions for you today. We're going to talk about it all. We're going to talk about digital and technology. We're going to talk about the ripple effects of COVID-19 that a lot of us are still dealing with and seeing with our kids. We're going to talk about how to raise grateful kids, resilient kids. We're going to hit it all. But before we do, we're going to do one of my favorite things, which is called Our Turn for a Tantrum, where, Kathy, I give you the autonomy for 60 seconds to vent about anything that your heart so desires, and then I'm going to head into my tantrum for today.
Okay. Has the timer started?
You're going.
Okay. So my tantrum, to put it in context for you, I have two adult children. They're 22 and 25 women, and they, are for the most part launched into the world. So I'm done with the middle of the night awakenings, feedings, sicknesses, the angst of the teen years when I'm waiting for them to get home. We're sleep deprived most of the first 18 years of our children's lives
100%.
for one reason or another. So that's one part of the emptiness that I've really been looking forward to, is having continuous uninterrupted sleep. But I have a dog.
I was like, where are we going with the tantrum part?
I have a dog. And she's elderly. She's elderly because we got her when our kids were about 10 and 12.
Because you're like, they'll grow up together.
They grew up together. And then the children left me with her. So she gets us up in the middle of the night, early in the morning, because she's incontinent. So when she wakes us up to go outside and go to the bathroom, we let her out because that's better than cleaning the carpet. So we continuously have those interruptions. But this week, she had a stomach bug.
Oh, my God.
So we had explosive diarrhea all over the place.
Oh, my God.
In the middle of the night.
So you just traded like the lack of sleep for your kids with the lack of sleep for this dog.
Yes. And I personally think the children should come get her because we got the dog for them.
The children, of course.
They had a PowerPoint presentation and I fell for it.
Oh, my gosh.
So.
And they're like, we're going to take care of it. We're going to
do everything. Right.
Don't worry, Mom. And now you're like, where are you now?
Where are they?
What is this dog's name?
Lily.
Lily girl. Let us sleep. Let us sleep.
Right.
Oh my God, that's a good tantrum. Okay, I'm super excited that you're a girl mom because I was a little worried like I was the only one that would get this tantrum for today. My tantrum is going to be, I don't know if you did this, but for years of my life, probably culminating in hours, it has been this. And I'm to those who are listening, I'm doing this like extraction motion because that is what I do with my kids' underwear and pants constantly. Wherever they are, they just drop them as one collective piece of clothing before they get in the bath, shower, wherever they may be getting. And I'm constantly doing this number and pulling them apart before I do their laundry. And no matter how many times I talk to them about like, just take them apart and put them in your hamper that I have placed in your bedroom and made it so easy for you, I'm still doing this. I'm still extracting.
I hear you. I feel your pain.
All right, Kathy. So I want to start talking to you about clinic, what you're seeing, like from a macro level, what trends are you seeing in teens and adolescents right now?
So I'm glad that we're leading with this because I think it's important that we're all aware of the macro trends. The basic kind of general macro trend is since 2010, the rates of anxiety, depression, suicide, self-harm, and failure to launch have increased substantially.
That's a bleak picture.
Right. It is. It is. But we're going to get to some good stuff later on as we talk. But that is a bleak picture. And I think it's important to lead with that so that we are motivated as collectively as a community to fix it, because there are a lot of things we can do to work on this.
Do you think the reason that we've seen these increasing rates is partially because we just have more information, we're having better intervention, we're screening more often? Or do you think there's a direct tie to, like, I don't know, the fact that iPhones were more readily available starting in 2010?
Right. So that's a great question. So there's this wonderful book called The Anxious Generation. It's written by a psychologist named John Haidt. And he really does a great job in that book of summarizing the research and laying out the argument that there's a direct causal relationship between two things that have contributed to these mental health declines that we're seeing. The two things are, one, overprotective parenting in the real world. And there are lots of reasons why that started. It started in the 90s and escalated from there. And then the other thing is, yes, iPhones coming in 2007.
Okay.
And so he really does a great job of, analyzing the other possible causal factors that could have contributed to the mental health decline and showing us that it really is boiling down to those two things. So
that's the trend. Mm-hmm. That's where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I know you see kids and teens every day in all different phases of their lives. I think something that we as parents can struggle with are when to recognize it's a real red flag versus convincing ourselves or telling us the narrative like they're going through a phase or it's just something developmental. So talk to me a little bit, what is the number one flag that says to a parent, like, this isn't just a phase, like this is something where we need to seek professional help for our child? So
that's probably one of the questions that I get asked the most often. And I think that it's important to, there's probably no harm in if you're uncertain about whether this is just a phase or there's something underlying it that they need help with. There's no harm in taking them to a psychologist, a counselor, and getting them, some help. I think that if you present it as a gift, that's how I like to have parents present it, that, I'm going to give you a gift of talking to a trusted adult outside of friends and family, someone who's bound by confidentiality. They can't talk to us about what you discuss with them, so it's a safe place where you can talk about anything. And someone who's trained to teach you healthy coping strategies. And so presenting it that way is really helpful. In terms of red flags, looking at sudden changes in appetite, mood, sleep, academic performance, behavior, any kind of sudden changes that really stand out that you can't think of kind of a common sense cause for, right? We know when kids are sick, they're not going to eat well and they're not going to sleep well. So looking for any changes in those areas. And then, of course, if they ask for it, which more and more kids are starting to do now, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Just if they ask for it, I say immediately, don't ask questions. Just try to get them in with someone.
I love what you said. A couple of things that you said. I love the concept of I'm giving you this gift. That's a beautiful way of putting it, and hopefully it will resonate with them. And I love that you said, like, there's no harm. Even if you think something's up or you have a hunch, and maybe there's not, what's the harm in it? Because we would all benefit from having a trusted adult who's a confidant. Yeah.
Now, where it can do harm is if parents force their child to go to therapy, or if they make it seem like a punishment. So like, if the child's been getting in trouble for things at school and they're like, oh, you're going to have to go to therapy. You have to go. Well, that's not really setting us up for success.
Sure.
And I will not participate in that. If I get a sense in an intake that the child is being forced to come to therapy, that they don't want to participate. I just tell the parents, you know what? I don't see kids who don't want to be here. I've got a long wait list. This isn't going to benefit the child. And in fact, it could do harm. And we need to draw a line there, because if a child feels forced into therapy, then they begin to get a negative idea about it. And then they may not come back to it later on when they need it.
Yeah.
Notice I said when, not if. I believe we all need it at different points in our life.
Sure.
And I don't want to do that harm so that it's something they won't come back to later on when they are ready.
Yeah.
So I just try to say, hey, it seems like you're not ready right now. I'll be here, until when you are ready, myself or someone else will be here. So let's just wait until then. And just leave it open that it's available to them, but that we're not going to force it.
Yeah. Well, you said a trusted adult, and I think the moment it feels forced, that trust is broken. Now It almost feels like the therapist is in cahoots with the parent, and like there's no trust there. There's no like, I can firmly believe that this person is a confidant for me because it feels like they're on my parent's side.
Right.
So, Kathy, we talked a little bit about the book, The Anxious Generation, and the author's stance that parents, I think it was starting in Gen Z, so like starting in the 90s, like you said, that parents of Gen Zers were super overprotective when it came to the real world and were neglecting the safety parameters around the digital world. And that is his whole kind of stance. I think that that's something that I certainly struggle with. I imagine other parents like me struggle with is, stranger danger is very real. I'm terrified of it. I'm terrified that something will happen to my children. But I also know that like, hey, I'm sitting there at night with my tablet and my kids see me on my phone and all that kind of stuff. So how can we start to kind of like flip that script so that we're breaking the cycle of raising these super anxious children?
Right. So one thing I want to say is, Think of the iPhone and really the virtual world in general as an experience blocker.
Okay.
And think of being overprotective as another experience blocker. Children learn from experience, right? We don't teach them to walk by talking about it or showing them videos of it. We teach them to walk by physically helping them learn how to move their body and walk. Mm-hmm. So I think that flipping the script really involves collective action as a community to recognize the harm that's been done by overprotecting in the real world and underprotecting in the virtual world, and then make a decision collectively as a community to do things differently, right? So when I was raising my children, the oldest was born in 2000, the youngest in 2003. The iPhone came out in 2007. By 2010, most middle schoolers had an iPhone in their pocket, including mine.
Wow.
And so I don't like use the word neglectful with protecting them. I don't think we were neglectful. We just didn't know what we didn't know. Mm-hmm. And the technology wasn't there it wasn't really good parental controls weren't very good. Mm-hmm. And our kids were a lot smarter than we were about technology. So we really didn't have the means to protect them the way that we should have. And we really didn't know the need to protect them because we had to. You
were learning it in real time.
We were doing this experiment.
Yeah.
On all of our kids, right?
Yeah.
But now that we know that this experiment didn't go well and that children are not doing well, that these formative years, especially the teen years, they're called formative because they are. The brain is rewiring at an escalating rate during puberty. So what we expose our kids to is super important. Mm-hmm. And when we give them an iPhone or any smartphone, they have access to pornography. They have constant access to games and social media and all kinds of things that are harmful to them, we know now. So if collectively people can form communities in which they can normalize not giving your kid a phone until high school, that would be ideal.
Okay.
That would be really ideal. And then it's not as hard because you're you're with other families who are doing the same thing. There's this wonderful organization called Wait Till 8th. And that's where parents start a movement in their elementary school to get other families to sign an agreement that they won't buy their child a phone before 8th grade. And it only goes into effect if at least 10 families at the same school sign it. And usually when people have done it, there's so much overwhelming support that way more than 10 families sign it. But then you've started a movement in your little community. Yeah. And your child won't be able to come home and say, but everyone else has it. Everyone else has an iPhone. Everyone else is on Instagram. Because they'll have other kids who are being encouraged to play independently.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Wait for 8th. So back to the anxious generation. Haight talks about discovery mode versus defense mode. So discovery being this idea of play, like you were talking, like experience, versus defense being around social media. So how can parents sort of understand where their kids are falling in those arenas?
Right. So discovery mode is the mode we want our children to be in. We want them to, kids who are in discovery mode, they want to try new things. They're excited about trying new things. Even if they're a little scared, they'll still do it and be excited when they did it. They're curious. They're exploring. They're really, they're kind of relaxed and flexible. Kids who are in defend mode, they are scared
of any new experience.
Right. Of most, if not all, new experiences. They're terrified. They're afraid to do new things. It's almost like their sympathetic nervous system is activated all the time, and they're constantly in fight-flight mode. They're afraid of just everyday things, like walking into school. But they're also afraid of trying new things. So the kids in defend mode are practicing a lot of avoidance. So I like to ask kids, okay, are you not trying out for that team because it's just not something you want to do? It's your preference. You just aren't interested in it? Because that's okay. Or are you not trying out for that team because you're afraid? Because I don't like decisions that are being driven by fear. Kids who are in defend mode are constantly being driven by fear to avoid stuff. And that's sad. I don't want anxiety to be the boss of them.
No, not at a time in their lives where it should be like very happy and
exploratory
carefree.
And learning.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So Haight specifically talks about social media putting kids in that defend mode or a linkage between the two.
Absolutely. Especially for girls. We know that social media has been very harmful to girls. That the more a girl is on social media, that there's a direct correlation to the girls who are on social media more are more depressed. It's really sad. But girls and boys in the teen years, boys are more motivated by agency and autonomy and being in charge. And girls are at that age in the teen years are more interested in connection. And so social media, that's part of why they're more vulnerable to the harms of social media. And there's actually a sensitive period between the ages of 9 and 14 are particularly sensitive years for learning social and cultural competency. And if they're experiencing these experience blockers, they're not being allowed to branch out to separate from their family and do some independent things and also on their phone all the time.
Yeah.
Then they're not having those experiences and getting that important knowledge.
What are you seeing? And I don't want to talk about obviously like specific patient cases, but what are you seeing in your meetings with teens and adolescents directly as it relates to social media? Like, do you have any specific examples of things that you've come across?
I think there's just a lot of anxiety about what they post, when they're posting that it's the perfect post with the hope that it'll get the perfect response. I think in the moment when they're doing things, they're much more focused on the post they're going to do from that experience than they are in being present in the experience. I think that's really sad. They're scared too, because I think we've done a good job of educating them about the permanence of things they put out in social media. So there's some anxiety about, making a mistake, not with their own posts necessarily, but everybody around them has cameras. And, if someone gets a video of them or takes a picture of them that's embarrassing and posts it. And then the subtle bullying that's happening, primarily, it's increased a lot in girls. With social media as a really powerful tool for doing subtle bullying under the radar so that they don't really get in trouble for it. But it's there doing damage.
Ugh, I hate that.
Girls are lonely.
Girls are lonely.
They're lonely. They might have thousands of followers and be very lonely, not really have any good close friends. Teenagers are just not as active out of the house doing things. I have to beg a lot of my clients to get their driver's license.
What is that? Talk to me about that, because I have so many friends whose kids are inching towards 15, 16. They're like, they have no interest in driving.
That's right.
None.
And I remember, that was just a tremendous rite of passage.
Oh my gosh, I was gone.
We could not wait to get our driver's license, right? And now I think it's really what we're talking about. They aren't interested in leaving the house, in part because they already haven't done a lot outside of the house. So they don't know what they're missing. They also have anxiety about leaving the house, a lot of them, and doing things with friends in person because they haven't had that experience to gain the confidence and the competence. So they're not, we were excited about getting our license and having that independence from our parents and being able to do things with our friends.
Of course.
Kids of today, because of the childhood they've had, being sheltered, being overprotected, and having the virtual world in the palm of their hands in their room, I think they perceive that they're socializing. I think they think their social needs are being met to a degree.
Yeah.
And they're really not.
But their world is like inside of a
phone that they have, most of them in their room. And so why get their license? They're perfectly happy.
Wow.
And they don't want to get jobs.
Okay.
Kind of for the same reason, I think. All the same reasons.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to get a job and have my own money and, just, I don't know, feel older, feel more responsible, more confident.
Yeah.
I really looked forward to that. And now we have more people in high school who aren't getting jobs, who aren't getting their license. And I just think that's really sad.
It is sad. It's super sad.
Yeah. And kids are, they are having sex at a later age now. They are drinking alcohol at a later age. And obviously, I think those are good things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, they're losing some of these other quintessential rites of passage that I think all teenagers should do. And to me, taking driver's ed, doing the permit, getting their license, getting a job are really important things.
What was it? And sorry, I'm kind of jumping all around, but I want to go back to the 1990s parents, the anxious the parents of the anxious generation. I know we talked about like, hey, they were more terrified around like the real world. Like what was happening in the real world that made them feel that way and like want to bring everybody close?
Right. I know. Cause I was born in 1970. So I was raised in a very different independent era. I love thinking about the things I got to do when I was a kid, and how much I grew from those things. So in the 90s, part of what changed is we got cable TV and we had news cycles going 24 hours a day. Yeah. All of a sudden, people had access to that. And so when people see the news and they see a child abduction, or some other horrific crime, I think we tend to get scared, especially if we have kids at that time that are that age. And we tend to magnify it and not realize how rare those occurrences are.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that happened is crime shows became popular. There was this show by John Walsh. I can't remember the name of it, but it was all about missing children. That might have been what it was called, Missing Children.
Yeah.
And that really terrified people.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Understandably. And so well-meaning parents just took it a little too far.
Sure.
We were told, the world is a dangerous place. Look at all the things that are happening.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But we don't stop flying, most of us, just because we see a plane crash on the news, right? We know that plane crashes happen, but we know they're rare. And we continue living our lives. We don't stop getting in cars just because car accidents happen. But I feel like and I say we because I was a part of it, I was much more overprotective of my children than my mother was of me. And if I could go back, I would definitely do things a little differently. I didn't helicopter too much, but it's the culture that I was in, that we are in. So I think a lot of things contributed to it, and then it just got magnified.
Yeah. Well, and if I think about like my mom friends and my mom circles, like we're talking about things that happened. And so if you're in that vicious news cycle, then all the moms are talking about like, did you see that case in Iowa of, such and such kid? And like, to your point, it just is like becomes this magnification of something and becomes much bigger. And then you're all scared to death.
Right. And kids are actually safer now than they were when I was a kid. When I was a kid, we weren't talking about stranger danger. We weren't as good about, most families weren't as good about talking to their kids about private parts and what to do if someone touched your private parts and boundaries. Yeah. And now we're collectively so much better at that.
Yeah.
So kids are way better at this.
Oh my goodness. My generation, so I'm a millennial, and we identify as like the anxious generation because if you think about the trajectory of like our lives, it was like 9/11 marked this like very significant milestone. You knew where you were. The DARE program that scared you half to death about drugs. We probably were like the next gen of those parents coming off of the anxious parents. Then we graduated college. It was like a terrible economic recession, like 2008-ish. And it was like latch on to the first job you can get and climb the corporate ladder. And so we had like all these pressures and anxieties. But hopefully we're doing better in terms of like making our kids less anxious. I don't know, but I think about all those things, like just our journey.
Right.
So we talked a little bit about the effects of social media on the teens and adolescents you're seeing. But let's talk about the parents, because I know I see these impossible standards, these impossible perfect parents, the perfect birthday party, the picture perfect Christmas card. So are you seeing it with parents as well? Just these comparisons?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, especially the postpartum moms that I work with, I think mothers have always had this desire for perfection, not coming necessarily from a place of originating from perfectionism, but just a place of love, just wanting to do the right thing for our kids, right? And so we want to do the right thing for our kids. And then we go on social media and see these influencers or even our friends who are doing, incredible things that they post on social media, incredible family trips. Like you said, the birthday parties. Someone told me this week, one mother that I saw this week said, she went on social media and this influencer was showing like a typical day. And I was like, she told me what it was. It was like, I get up at 5 a.m. I've already
exercised,
meal prepped. I've already packed their lunches the night before because I always do that. And then, I go exercise and she's got on like this beautiful matching outfit and her hair is done and her makeup. And she, of course, exercises and then comes home in time to get the kids ready for school. You get the idea.
Sure.
And, the woman who was telling me about this, as she was telling me, I said, do you really think that's how her days really go? And we were both like, no, like we know that's not how
Sure.
anybody's day really goes. Nobody. But that's how she's depicting it to capture our attention because our attention is the currency. And so it's very hard for any parent to see all of that perfectionism and compare ourselves. But you're just seeing the highlight reels.
What do you feel like this generation is doing right with parenting?
I'm so glad you asked that because you guys are doing a lot of things right. I have a whole list.
Oh, wow.
So valuing and destigmatizing mental health care is huge, right? I mean, we definitely are seeing more and more parents who, even if they didn't get mental health care, even if their family stigmatized it, they're doing a better job of making it available to their kids. Greater awareness of body shaming and the impact, the importance of body image, better understanding of the mental load of mothering, just the cognitive load of all the planning. I think that there's way more awareness around that and around, couples trying to partner more in those things. Greater emphasis on self-care for parents and trying to relieve parents of self-imposed guilt around taking care of themselves and really prioritizing that. Supporting individuality and identity, gender identity, sexual orientation. I think today's parents are much more understanding of the importance of supporting our youth in that. LGBTQ, that's a mouthful, youth have a much higher rate of suicide than non-LGBTQ. And a big part of that is the kids who don't have family support are at much higher risk of suicide. So when I tell parents, your support is actually a life or death issue here, they tend to obviously be more affirming and supportive. So that's one other thing that you guys are doing right. And then teaching consent, teaching bodily autonomy is fabulous.
Yay.
Right? Yeah. So lots of things that are being done that are really wonderful.
Yay. Okay, this makes me happy because it can feel hard. It can feel very hard.
Right.
Tackling all of
Don't
these
you
things.
think you're doing all those things I just said?
I think so. I mean, some of them, because my kids are so young, we haven't gotten into a lot of them. But yeah, for the most part, we
you plan to do these things.
Oh
probably.
yeah. I mean, and we're already hitting on sex and boundaries and consent and mental health. And, we talk about, they're young, so they're not really expressing who they're interested in boys or girls, but we give them examples. We talk about people in our lives who are LGBTQ and what it can look like, and that we'll love them no matter what. One of the pressures that moms and parents face right now is there are all these different schools of parenting, and it's honestly you've kind of you feel like you need to figure out which one you belong in. So there's gentle parenting, there's conscious parenting, there's one called fuck around and find out parenting.
I like that.
Yeah, right? So what are your thoughts on, I guess, just this pressure to almost feel like you have to fall into a school, but also what are your thoughts on gentle parenting?
Right. So I think with any parenting philosophy, what we have to be careful with is people can get so indoctrinated in it that they take it to an extreme, which we were talking about that earlier with the overprotectiveness, right? It's good to be protective of our kids, but we took it too far, right? So the same is true of gentle parenting and any other parenting philosophy. I think, parenting doesn't come with a handbook.
No, it doesn't.
There are lots of books, and that makes it even more confusing. But there's not one right way. And that's really frustrating to me because I like to be in control and I like to plan, and I would just love for someone to tell me the right way.
100%.
But every child is different. Every family is different. And I think a lot of it is, it's good to read the parenting books and see what feels right for you, what makes sense to you. But I just want to encourage parents to be conscientious about not taking it to the extreme. In moderation, whatever parenting philosophy you're going to do, try to keep it moderated. right? And so with gentle parenting, the danger, I'm a very gentle person. I'm a very kind person. That's a part of who I am and what I value as a mom, as a friend, as a psychologist. Those are wonderful traits. Who wouldn't like gentle parenting?
Of course, it sounds great on paper.
Right. So I like that it's, emphasizing compassion and connection and being loving and calm. Those are wonderful things. But someone who takes it too far could become very permissive with very few boundaries because they're just, that's what gentle might mean to them.
Yeah.
So I think we can be calm and connect and empathic and compassionate and have accountability and have boundaries.
Yeah.
And that's really important. But I am seeing a lot of gentle parenting enthusiasts, particularly on social media, who present this, I want to say, facade of being overly gentle in a way that's not realistic in day-to-day life. That can make a lot of parents feel guilty because every now and then you're going to lose your shit.
Yeah. I don't know how you would get out of the door in the morning if you're doing gentle parenting to that degree.
You're going to yell sometimes. And I want parents to understand that's not the goal, but it's normal. And you can really spin your mistakes when you lose your temper or you yell too much. You can actually make that into a wonderful teaching moment by owning it, apologizing for it, and working on it. So I think gentle parenting can make some parents feel guilty because it's just not, sometimes it's just not how people communicate. It's not how they were raised or culturally. It's just not their style. And so they see this and they're like, I can't do that. That's not how I talk. That's not how I act. And they may feel guilty about that, or they may feel like they're falling short because they don't look like the people on those videos and they don't sound like that.
Yeah. Another thing that my mom friends talk a lot about, and many are super fans of Dr. Becky. Are you familiar with Dr. Becky?
I am.
So Dr. Becky talks about this idea of sturdy leadership or like being a sturdy leader for your kids. What do you like for those moms who are just trying to hold it together at the end of the day?
Yeah.
Like, how do you recommend we be sturdy leaders for our kids?
Well, first of all, I want to say they probably are being sturdy leaders for their kids, even when they don't feel like it, right? And a big part of sturdy leadership is vulnerability. It is being willing to say to your child, I'm really tired. I'm really having a hard time today. And share that vulnerability. I'm really frustrated. Whatever the vulnerability is, part of sturdy leadership is being able to talk about that. And that invites the child to, see you talking about your emotions, your emotional regulation, how you're going to cope with it in a healthy way. So lots of learning can come from that. And it opens them up to hopefully be vulnerable with you. So if you feel like you're crumbling, instead of seeing that as not being sturdy, let's see that as normal. And, using that, you have to be confident to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right. So when someone is vulnerable, they're actually showing the best leadership in that moment to open up about their vulnerability and how they're going to cope with it. I think also for moms, a lot of the time when I felt like I was crumbling, it was because I felt really out of control when my kids weren't doing what I wanted them to do. And so that was very difficult. I think it is for most of us, right? And I would, especially at night when you're tired, you've been working all day, I would feel crumbling is a perfect word to describe it. And having boundaries in those moments is leadership, right? So, saying, for example, I had a hard stop with my kids when they were older, like middle school, high school, and their clock was later than mine. I had a boundary that if you want my help with any homework, you need to tell me by 8:00.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I think having a boundary like that is sturdy leadership.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a boundary that if you need me to buy things for a project, you need to give me at least a few days notice, right? You can't come in on a Sunday night hot and say at 9:00 when I'm already in my jammies and in my bed with my book, you cannot come in and say, Mom, I got a project due tomorrow. I need a poster board. You can come in and say that, but I'm not going to get out of bed and do it.
Yeah. You've missed the cutoff.
Right. Having boundaries is the best sturdy leadership. And when you have boundaries, oftentimes people aren't happy about that. So it can feel chaotic. It can feel like you're failing miserably because they're crying or angry or slamming doors or having a complete tantrum meltdown. And that can give us this illusion that we're failing. But really, I would like for moms to put a different spin on it and see that you're leading in those moments.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love the reframing because it's so easy to give in once people are upset, right? We just want to make it better. But I love that. And I also think it's important, like you are a mom to 2 girls. I'm a mom to 2 girls, like modeling those boundaries so that when they get to that stage in life, like they have boundaries too. And they've seen it in action.
Exactly.
I love it. Ooh, all right. The next one really gets my goat. Like it really revs me up.
Okay.
Raising grateful children. Like this is my thing, Kathy. Like this is the thing that gets under my skin like no other. My kids have no idea how good they have it. They have no idea. And we talk about this. My husband and I, like we literally are like, what do we need to do? Like I think a hard week for us is always the week after Christmas before everybody goes back to school. Routines are off, but it's also when my kids are suddenly the most whiny, like no gratitude for everything that they've been given, that kind of stuff. And every year, I swear, my husband and I look at each other and we're like, what do we need to do? Like, do we need to take them to a soup kitchen? Do we need to drive them to like a homeless encampment and show them like, how do we make our kids grateful and recognize what they have? And yes, I know it's like a whole developmental thing and their brains aren't ready and all that kind of stuff. Like I get it, but just like a little bit of gratitude would be nice.
For sure. I think, obviously that is a problem. That is a conversation that my husband and I have had, that all of my friends and I have. Our children are very privileged. We're very blessed that they're privileged, but we also want to balance that with some gratitude. One thing that I did was our church had a great youth group and they took a lot of mission trips. And I found that to be very, very helpful in we went to a third world country. We went to, rural Appalachia. We went to places that had been devastated by natural disasters. And so they saw a lot of suffering. And through those experiences, they came to realize just how good their life is. And I thought that was really cool. So seeking out experiences like that, and also just in your community. I love the idea you had of a soup kitchen, of volunteering, and just that also creates leadership, right, and resilience, and helps open up a grateful heart. But really, one of my favorite things about to teach gratitude is just experiencing things you're grateful for live in the moment and talking about it. Because what we're really doing is we're trying to create an algorithm. Our brains have a filter, and our brains work. Most of us understand how the algorithms work on social media. Our brains are no different. It's amazing, right? So the way we think impacts what we notice and filters it. So if I'm, trying to be conscientious, especially with any age kid, of just noticing good things around you. Oh, the seat is comfortable, or that was a really good talk. Thank you for that. Or, oh, that service we got at the restaurant was so good, right? Isn't that nice? Or the food was good, or that person who held the door. Just everyday things to be thankful for, not just big gifts, which we should also be thankful for,
Sure.
right? But trying to help create that algorithm for them to notice the good things in them and around them that are happening all the time. I'm a huge believer that there is way more good in the world than bad.
Sure.
Way more. But sometimes our filters get off track and we're not noticing it as much. So by thinking out loud about those things when you're together with your family, and whenever, one of my favorite things to say to my family is whenever something good, like somebody just does something good around us, and I'll say, and they're like, we know what you're going to say, Mom. I say, there's so much good in the world. Like, look at that, right? So I think pointing it out and noticing it yourself is helping create that algorithm for them. And just little exercises like, tell me three good things today, right? 3 things that you're grateful for today. It helps too. You can do that at dinner. You can do it at car time when you pick them up from school. You can do it at bedtime, really positive way to end the day. It's free. It costs nothing. And it gets them thinking. And when you do it routinely, then what starts happening is they're filtering it throughout the day. When something happens or they see something, they're filing it away. They're noticing it so they can tell you later when you ask their 3 things.
Man, this is some good advice.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
I love that. I'm going to start doing this like today because, like I said, this one really grates my gears or whatever the expression is, grinds my gears. But also, if I think back to when the girls were toddlers and we were trying to get them to use manners, please, thank you, that kind of stuff. It was modeling it for them. It was make sure that Sean and I, thank you for making dinner. Thank you for handing me my coffee in the morning, like whatever
experience.
It may be. Yeah. And
yes.
I should have remembered that. It was like all about the modeling, and that algorithm building is one way that we can do that. So,
and I like to teach kids that manners are a form of love. I really like to frame it that way, that respect is just love coming in a different form. I instead of framing it as respect, like it's a submissive act.
Yeah, you must respect
like you're submitting to your authority and respecting them. I like to see it as, well, we're all equal, we're all people, but we're just being kind and loving one another, and saying please and thank you and yes ma'am is just a way to be kind and loving to people, just like giving hugs or making them cards or what other things that kids do. It's just a way to be kind.
I like that one too.
Yeah.
These are good life hacks. For the mom who is listening to this in her car right now, she's going through that carpool line. She's going to make the grocery run. What is one micro habit that she can start doing today to lower the collective anxiety of her household?
Okay, I really struggled with this one. You told me you were going to ask me this, and there are a lot of things that I would like to say. But I decided if I needed to pick one, what would it be? And I would say meditation practice.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that meditation is so well researched. When I was younger, I used to think, that's kind of, hokey and out there. I don't know how much good that would do. I didn't really buy into it until I did. And what I learned was so much research supports it. It's an evidence-based practice that goes way back. And we know that it's very effective and that it doesn't have to be hours or an hour-long practice, that even a 5-minute quick, peaceful pause can be grounding and effective in creating some mindfulness and intentionality in your day that'll stay with you. So I think, even 5 minutes, there are apps with guided meditations. I mean, the Calm app, Headspace, most exercise apps like Peloton app and things like that have a meditation option. I have a Hatch alarm. It wakes me up with a meditation every morning. So there's just so many different venues that you can tap into to get meditations, and don't underestimate what a difference even a 5-minute meditation will make in helping you get grounded and focus and just be more present.
Yeah, that's really, really good advice. You said that you are now a mom to 2 wonderful adult children. What is your advice, or what would you say to parents today who are struggling and juggling with like young kids?
Okay, I struggled with this one too.
They weren't meant to be hard, I promise.
I struggled with it because there's so many things I would want to say. If I sat down with, like you, I'm sitting down with you. There's so much I want to say from my experience. So I tried to narrow it down to kind of some of the key things. So one thing I would say is when you're going through something difficult with your child, it can feel like it's never going to end, right? Like, remember when they weren't sleeping when they were babies? I don't know about you, but it felt for me like it was never going to end. Like I was never going to sleep again. And now here I am with my dog and I'm not sleeping. But anyway,
Lily,
it's temporary. It's temporary. And we have to remember that when we're in difficult times, reminding ourselves that it's temporary can be really a game changer in terms of feeling less weighted down, less overwhelmed, right? The other thing I would say is some of the things that you're probably feeling guilty about, and many times, let's face it, it's self-imposed guilt. Nobody's putting it on
100%.
us. Like for me, I felt guilty about working so many hours. I think that's really sad that I felt guilty, but again, it was self-imposed. I felt guilty about working out, right? Because I was taking time away from the family. Again, it makes me sad. I'm ashamed to admit that, but I'm going to admit it, right?
No,
I'm going to be
very
vulnerable
real
and admit it. And I would say those very things that I sometimes felt guilty about, now my adult children tell me they look up to me so much because I did those things. They look up to me so much because I worked hard to support our family, and they were really proud of what I did and the passion I have for my work and the good work that I do. They are so proud of me that I focus on my health, and exercise is a big part of that. And they both, as adult women, exercise regularly. And I'm just going to take some credit for that, you know.
Sure.
That they saw me doing that, and now they integrate that into their lives, and I'm so happy for them. But I think it's interesting that, you know, and one of them said when she's, you know, has kids, that she's gonna work. She's like, some of my friends talk about staying home. I think I'm gonna work. And she said, I really thought you did a good job of that, and like I want to do that.
Wow.
So some of the things that I felt guilty about ended up later coming back to me as things that were really positive for my girls.
And praise for
so
you.
Know that some of the things you might feel guilty about or be struggling with are really things that might be having a positive, transformative experience for your girls. So, the last thing I'm going to say to you and to all the moms out there is your best is enough. And your best is going to be different on different days, and that's okay. But if you can just remind yourself, I did my best today, and really keep saying it until you believe it. Those affirmations are important. Like, talk to yourself the way you would talk to a friend. Be kind to yourself. Lift yourself up.
I love all those.
One more. Have a posse of women.
Yes.
Have a posse of women who are vulnerable and imperfect and kind, and talk about the things they do wrong and laugh about it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love a good girl gang. Okay. These are really good, Kathy. Thank you. You had me teary-eyed with your daughters and the way that they look up to you now. Gosh, one can only hope. We had a couple of questions. So when I mentioned to the listeners that I was going to be speaking with you today, there were a couple of questions that they wanted me to get into specifically. The difference between a school-based assessment for a child versus an independent psychological assessment. So whether that's looking for signs of ADHD in the child, depression, whatever may be the case. So can you talk a little bit about what you think the major differences are?
School-based assessments are mainly focused on learning.
Okay.
They're focused on academic achievement. They're focused on cognitive achievement, or I shouldn't say achievement, cognitive capability, and whether or not there's some kind of learning disorder. That's what schools are focused on, rightfully so. When you get a private evaluation, they will use the exact same tests that the school uses to test cognitive and achievement. So they'll look at the learning, but a private evaluator will also be doing assessment for other clinical issues that could be comorbid, like ADHD, like anxiety, depression, things like that. Okay. So a school evaluation usually doesn't get into any of the clinical diagnostic stuff like ADHD, anxiety, and depression. And That's okay for some kids. If really their parents are certain that all they've got going on is learning stuff, then I would say the school evaluation is perfectly sufficient. But if you're concerned that there could be some underlying anxiety or depression or ADHD going on, you really probably want to do a private evaluation. And they'll give you a full report with all the results at the end of the evaluation that you do privately, and you can take that to the school.
Okay.
And it will still be applicable to the school.
Okay.
The school still has a process they have to go through when they're determining whether a child is eligible for academic accommodations. They'll still have to go through that process, even though you come to them with evaluation, but it can save a little bit of time.
Okay. That's good advice. The next question that we got from our listeners was around kind of the impetus of this conversation. What we've been talking about this entire time was how to juggle like real world experiences, sleepovers, dropping kids off at parties and just saying, see you later, like navigating this big, scary world that we're all living in.
Right. So we've got to control our own parent anxiety. And the book, The Anxious Generation, actually has a whole chapter that outlines what would be good activities, independent activities to target at different ages.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he breaks it down into different things to do to kind of encourage your kids to be doing at certain ages. But I think that's the key, is not allowing avoidance, right? If you know avoidance is being driven by fear, supportively encouraging them not to practice that avoidance. And then talk about what they learned. They learned they could do it. They learned that if they fail, they're okay. They can deal with that too. So just focusing on your action word congruence of, being encouraging, saying you can do it, and then actually letting them do the thing.
All right. So check your parenting anxiety and let them live.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I love it. Kathy, you've been more than generous with your time. I've kept you far too long, and I'm so grateful. We're going to wrap up with my last segment that I do, which is called Cheat Codes. So it is one thing that you have implemented in your family life. It could be when your kids were younger. It could be now that they're older. One thing that you have implemented that has just made things at home run a little bit more smoothly.
The shared calendar.
And now your adult children are all in the shared calendar.
No. Now that they're adults, everybody has their own calendar now.
Okay.
But when they were younger, kids, when they were at home, we had a shared calendar. For myself, my husband, my mother was very involved, so she was on the shared calendar so that everybody knew who needed to be where and what we had going on, and we could all collaborate on it.
Yeah, that's so nice.
That helps with the mental load a lot, right? Because now it's not one person, one parent who's in charge of the calendar and in charge of juggling all of that. So I think the shared calendar can be really, really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Kathy, thank you for all this. I'm super excited to get this one out for everybody to listen to.
Good.
You've given so much great guidance and also just practical tips. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. I love it. I appreciate being here. I always like an opportunity to talk about anything mental health. So thank you.